to the polls for this first election post President Robert Mugabe relinquishing his power. It said that this will be the most important election since independence in 1980. After a military takeover, Emmerson Mnangagwa took power from Mugabe. The 75-year-old will go up against a younger Nelson Chamisa of the opposition Movement for Democratic Change. And this on Monday, the 30th of July, the nation will cast their votes for a president, members of the National Assembly and councillors as well. To discuss, we're joined by the head of anthropology and development at the University of Johannesburg, Dr. David Moore. He's dedicated more than 30 years, I believe, understanding Zimbabwean. And so I guess the first question is, has it all changed? I mean, we don't have Morgan Tsvangirai, we don't have Robert Mugabe. Is this a new Zimbabwean election?
Yes, that's a good point. And it's the first election after a coup, or a soft coup. And coups are always a bit more exciting to analyze. There's a lot of complications in elections that don't come with a kind of semi-military intervention. But it is very important. A regime which is quite militarily dominated has to really prove that it's going to go the democratic route. A 40-year-old leader of the MDC has to prove that he can match Morgan Tsvangirai's gravitas and popularity, and there are divisions within both parties that both leaders have to handle. So it'll be very, very interesting. We have both parties, I think, not that ideologically different. There aren't big gaps, you know. They talk about modernizing agriculture, modernizing transportation, that sort of thing. There will probably be regional differences. We would hope that some ethnic differences don't get exacerbated. People have been talking a bit about that. But most of all, I think we hope that these elections will give everybody the chance to be speaking freely and assembling freely and debating freely and all of those things.
Can we start with Emmerson Mnangagwa? Is he seeking to legitimize the coup? Was there any chance of him clinging on without elections, or did he have to do this? And I guess it makes it easier for other African nations who weren't sure how to respond when that happened.
Well, I think the coup was kind of legitimate in a way. I mean, there was a lot of... It was
accepted.
Yeah, it's accepted by the neighboring nations and so on, and the people were so glad to see Robert Mugabe go. There was a lot of talk about governments of national unity coming out of that coup. And people are still sort of talking about that. What would happen if it's kind of a very tight race, and would there be a deal made between, you know, the two presidents of the party, something like that? There's lots of talk going on about along those lines. The international community, the donors, I guess especially, have placed a lot of credence on this election. You know, well, maybe we'll give you some aid if the elections are free and fair. The promises are kind of pending that election. So it's going to be very important for Mnangagwa. A couple of people in the more military side, because remember, Emmerson Mnangagwa was outside of the country when the military led by Constantino Chiwenga actually carried out the coup. And Mnangagwa didn't come till things were pretty certain. So he owes a lot to that military. Now, a couple of people have said that, you know, the old line, the military would never accept any leader but a liberation fighter. That has been silenced by Mnangagwa. So that concern must still be there, that if Mnangagwa lost, what would his military backers do? That's a big question. And I think, well, you know, the primaries are pretty much finished. There's been, as the newscast said, there's a lot of new candidates within ZANU-PF. Some of them are complaining. Mnangagwa has said stop complaining. This indicates, I think, that, you know, still ZANU is not completely tight and united. And then there's the new Patriotic Front, which, and you had Jonathan Moyo. It's kind of his party, right? But he's not there, of course. They will be putting up quite a number. They'll probably get a full slate. It's hard to say. The nominations have to be put in by June 14th. I think the MDC and ZANU-PF have those. They've come to their agreements on who won the primaries. The NPF will come, and there's the other 138 or something parties which will have to come through with their nominations in a couple of weeks.
So before we look at Emmerson Mnangagwa's chances, because you said the reaction of the military would be adverse if he possibly if he lost. How likely is he to rig these polls?
I don't think they'll be rigged. There's a lot of debate still about the 2013 election, which was generally considered to be credible, right? These are the new words that come out of the election observation missions are a bit looser.
When they can't say free and fair completely.
Yeah, and we're seeing, Kenya was a pretty rough situation. I think there's less kind of hunger for real the pure democracy that liberals like to see. So the debate is going on about the 2013 elections, was there 1 million extra votes kind of snuck in through the system? What did the Israeli election company Nikuv do to fix things? There's a lot of debate going on about that, but it was judged credible. And through a lot of elections, 2005, 2013, probably the MDC was given a chance to pull out because the election roadmap wasn't ready. But it's very difficult to pull out of an election because your candidates really aren't going to support you. You know what? Are we just going to give up these seats for another party? And they lose a lot of credibility if they pull out. Of course, in 2008, in the presidential runoff, because if the president doesn't get 50% plus one, there has to be a runoff. So in 2008, it was 47% for Shangarai and 43 something for Mugabe, and they had the runoff. And
that's when he pulled out.
Shangarai pulled out because so many people were killed in his party, right? Probably around 200. There was a massive, and the people who are running ZANU-PF now are the people who did that, right? So Shangarai pulled out. And after much discussion with his party, he said, "No, I'm not going to let all these people get killed just for an election." And that led to SADC and the AU pushing for a government of national unity. So Morgan Shangarai became the prime minister, right, from 2009 to 2013. And they were supposed to develop a new roadmap, new constitution, all of this stuff up to 2013. Wasn't quite finished. And the MDC could have and probably were given hints that they would have had support from SADC, but could they really trust that, and would their membership, would their candidates go for that? So they decided to run. And as I say, the debate is whether there was rigging or whether the MDC really lost it because they didn't register enough voters and their national organizing secretary really didn't do his job. This time around, it's going to be I think it's going to be very, very difficult to rig. So there's some indications that some of the urban registration has been slow. Lots of NGOs in the MDC are putting up all sorts of conditions, free and fair. Let's have an independent auditing commission or from an outside auditor come in to audit the voters' roll. I think some NGOs are saying, let's get a little app that every voter can quickly see if they're registered, those things. So they're going, okay.
So real credibility. I'm asking if I can ask you one more. I'm asking the team very quickly. Just give us a prediction for an outcome. We have Emmerson Mnangagwa and an MDC maybe going into this a little weak, a young leader. What do you think the polls will be?
I think it'll be close.
Very good.
Is that good enough?
Yeah, good.
Very
Thank
close.
you. Saves time. Thank you so much. But incredible analysis as always, Dr. David Moore.
The polls are coming out. The polls will be out soon, opinion polls. Yeah.
And then we get a sense of where this is going. And so does Emmerson Mnangagwa, and hopefully not get scared because those polls are set now for the 30th of July this year. So that's in about 2 months' time, just across our border. Dr. Moore giving us some insight into that upcoming election.